Okay guys, welcome to Watch Jala Code. So like 3 days ago, I started learning C. I've been using a video from Handmade Hero. Okay, so today I'm going to try to make a simple CLI calculator from scratch. Of course, it's not going to take much time. So let's begin. Okay, now we can get ourselves our libraries. We can include stdio.h for printing and the standard library for atoi, which I'll explain later. Now we'll define our main function, and this is going to be a CLI application, so we'll need argc and argv. Yeah, argv is a pointer to an array. I made a little mistake here, but we'll get back to this. Now our goal is to make a simple CLI calculator. We're gonna make one that takes inputs like a full input string, like 9 plus 7 minus 8 times 5 or something like that. No complications, just code. Okay, so let's go. We'll read inputs in a loop, so let's get a loop. We're accepting CLI inputs in the form calc.exe 4 plus 5 minus 9, or we could do 4 plus 5 minus 9, but we'll just stick to the one with spaces. Our args will be stored in argv, which is an array. The first element will be the name, which is calc.exe. So this means we're starting from index 1. We will loop until we get to the end of the array. In our main function, the argc integer holds the length of things we are passed in the terminal. We will stop immediately we get to the last element. Let's increment the counts. Then, since we're reading or passing values in a loop, we'll eventually come across signs like plus, minus, multiplied by, and so on. If that's going to be the case, we'll need to check if something is a sign or if something is not a sign. So let's create a kind of like a type for an isSign function that we can use. Okay, I'm creating this in an initializer because unlike in like a language like JavaScript, you actually need to know the type of function you are using, because we haven't actually declared the full function, but we can do that later. But since we want to call the function early in the loop, we have to tell C what type of function it is. Then we can try doing an if sign, but we need a variable, so we can declare a character variable called current arg, short for current argument. We'll get the current character. That's why I do current then 0, because the first one gets us the current string and the 0 gets us the first character in the current string, which if it's a sign, we progress. So since we're going to compute something with our sign, we kind of need an initial value. So let's create an initial value and initialize it to 1. But this is actually a mistake. So see, I corrected this later because we're not supposed to initialize to 1, at least not in this code. Now we need a function to actually apply the sign. So like how we did for the other function, the isSign function, we can create an applySign function by first telling C the type or how by first giving C the function's signature before we actually give it a body. Now our initializer for the sign function contains 3 arguments. The first one is a character for the sign, the second one is an integer for the aggregate, and the last one is an integer for the next value, because how we code it is we take things in pairs of 2. So we'll see. At this point, I was wondering if we should pass the value back to aggregate, or we should make aggregate some sort of global variable that could be changed. But I ended up going with us passing the value back to aggregate. So you see how I end up writing aggregate back in this section. I do current plus 1 here so I can get the next value. For example, if we're parsing 4 plus 5 minus 9, and we find that the current value is a sign, it means the next value is going to be a number, because nobody's going to do 5 minus 9. It's going to be 5 minus 9. At least this calculator can't handle 5 minus 9. I remove this second current, the one up here, because we only have to move it forward once if it's a sign or if it's not a sign. If we left that, we would move the current counter up 2 times. In this else block, if we get here, we know we've processed the number above because we did next is argument, is the current argument plus 1, so it's basically the next argument. So all we have to do here is increment the current count again. Actually, we have to increment it by 2 here, but I think I completely forgot to do that in the video. Now let's get to actually writing the isSign function, because we just previously told the compiler the function's signature. So while the isSign function doesn't do anything fancy, it does what it's supposed to do for the limited amount of signs. I actually don't know how array operations work in C, so that's why I did this. If it was JavaScript, you could have done something like includes, but I don't know of in C as at the moment. Then now we can find the applySign function. So like before, it takes 3 parameters, and here we can use the switch function to switch the sign. Then just do a direct math in C, because we are using standard math operations. Now we can get ourselves a default case. So if we don't recognize the sign, we just return the aggregates they give us. So at this point, the code is basically finished, and at least I thought it would work, but as you see, it didn't. Okay, so I used the GCC compiler, and I had a host of errors. The first error actually occurs in line 10. I did not tell the C compiler what type the RV array is or was. It's actually supposed to be a character array, so I was supposed to have done car before in the writing the name. So I don't think I corrected that instantly, but let's see. Okay, the first error I ended up fixing was how I gave isSign a return type of boolean in the initializer, but when we actually wrote the implementation, I gave it an int, so I just changed it to an int because it wouldn't matter anyway. Then I fixed the car problem by telling the main function that the pointer array is actually a character array. Then I once again thought I was done, but it seemed like I still had one last error. It looked like a missing semicolon, so just had to go back to the line and inserted a semicolon. At least I thought it was a missing semicolon, but I guess I had more errors in store for me, because here I think the problem was that current was actually a character, and I was trying to add a character to an integer. So no, I was trying to pass I was trying to pass the applySign function a character, but if you remember, we actually declared this with an integer for the next parameter. I was trying to pass a character pointer. So this was actually an easy fix. All I had to do was cast the string to an integer using the atoi function, which I mentioned earlier. Atoi in C turns a string into an integer. It literally means ASCII or ASCII to integer. Atoi. There's actually a lead code question like that. So the atoi function felt familiar. I felt like I had implemented something like that before, but I didn't know it. So when I looked it up, I found that, oh, this was actually a lead code question. That was the final fix. So now the code ran. Definitely it compiled all right, and it actually ran all right as well. But as you see, I didn't return the value. I didn't print out anything. So back to the drawing board. So we just print out our final aggregate and we should be done. Now we can compile it and try it again, so to see if we are correct. Okay, so we had 5 plus 5 minus 9 is minus 3, which is incorrect. And actually, the reason for this was, remember, I set our initial value to 1. Yeah, I mentioned that that would be a problem, and this is the problem. If you set your initial value to 1, the calculation ends up being off because most expressions we pass to the calculator won't start with a sign. It will start with something like a number. So not taking a number into account, what this calculator ended up doing was 5 minus 9 plus 1, which is 6 minus 9, which is minus 3. That's why we had this error here. So once again, another easy fix, we would just change the value of aggregate to the first valuing the argv array. Of course, this way of doing things, as soon as we don't do something like minus 1. Okay, so once again, we have to use atoi to turn the first input, which is going to be a string, to an integer. And now we are done. So of course it'll work. So we can just test it out. Yep, 5 plus 5 minus 9 is indeed 1 because it evaluates to 10 minus 9. I tested out some more stuff. So the verdict for this is it kind of works, but only barely. Thanks for watching my video. Like, subscribe, and have fun.